This conference will now be recorded.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think this one is better link.
Okay, good. Okay, I have started recording. I was talking, and then I'm asking you a question. I'm thinking why you're not answering.
And I got like suddenly it's like you left the meeting and then how it's possible? Like
Yeah, that's why I was like, I'm talking, and then I asked you a question. Then I don't know where I lost you. Where did I lose you? Till when, which you could hear?
I think we were doing the after rain check and then duplicate we did. After the duplicate, yeah. You was
After
explaining
this,
duplicate.
you lost me. Okay. Okay, fine. Okay, so the logical inconsistencies. So for the logical inconsistencies, then it could be across the CRF, okay,
Mhm.
across a single CRF or it could be multi-CRF. So that's why I have put it as two different. So when it is across a single CRF, it could be both as a univariate as a multivariate, okay.
Mhm.
But usually univariates are missing values, okay.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's not always missing values. It could also or range checks, but it could be also something like what I mentioned that as per the it's a univariate check. We're saying that for example, pregnancy. Okay,
Mhm.
so if the study says that if the subject is pregnant, they should not be enrolled in the study. Okay,
Mhm.
and you have a urine pregnancy form where in one the question result is positive. Okay, so it's a one question. So whenever there is a check on one question, we call it uni. Uni is one. And then we
Mhm.
will put a check like if the result is positive, the subject should be excluded from the study.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's a univariate check, but it's in a single CRF.
Okay.
But there could be multivariate check. That means variate is variables. You remember the word variables? We said fields
Yeah.
and variables. Yeah. So
Yeah.
univariate is one variable. In the check is within one variable. That's why univariate. And
Mhm.
multivariate is the check is between two variables.
Mhm.
So let's take the example of adverse event, like what you have done. So if adverse event, can you tell me a check in adverse event form where it could be a multivariate check, but in a single form?
In a single form, like adverse event, they can write like, okay, this symptom like when is the date started, it could be but you're asking the multivariate, right?
Hmm.
Mm,
You're quite close. Okay. Okay.
yeah.
So for example, if the adverse event is reported, the start date should be present.
Yeah, first, yeah. And
Diagnosis is there, start date should be studied. That is multivariate because the programmer has to check between the event
mhm,
and the start date and say, okay, if the event is present, the start date is missing. They cannot
mhm,
put a missing value because start date could be missing in the form because there is
mhm,
no event,
mhm,
right? So they have to put a check like only if event is present, start date is present.
mhm.
Okay. Then another check could be like end date should not be prior to start date.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that.
so that is two variables they're checking. Okay,
Mhm,
but in the same form.
mhm,
So it could be logical inconsistencies across a single form. It could be
mhm.
univariate, as I said, the pregnancy example, or it could be multivariate, where I said you the example of a AE with an end date or a start date.
Mhm,
Okay. Then another inconsistency could happen between CRFs.
mhm.
Okay. So between CRF, there's an example already given here, but can you just think in the AE page, with
Mhm.
AE page, which page you will check?
For the which one, the inconsistence across.
Across pages. So AE page, which other page, you know the CRF pages now, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
concomitant medication page, you have adverse event page, you have end of study page.
yeah.
Which
So
pages you will be checking with the AE page? Okay, I'll just give it to you. So when there's a AE and they say there is a concomitant medication taken for the adverse event, then you will have to check your concomitant medication page, right? So they
Yeah.
say fever, medication given. Okay. Then as a data manager, you will say, oh, medication given for fever. Let me check which medication is given. Okay, paracetamol, right? Then it cannot be that the fever was from 10th to 12th. Okay. So 10th of May the fever started, 12th of May the fever ended. Okay. And there's a medication given, and you go to the medication page and you see that there's a paracetamol, but it is starting from 14th May. That's not logical, right?
Yeah.
Cannot happen because you are saying that you're taking medication for the adverse event because fever started on 12th. So the paracetamol should be from 12th. It can be only 12th also. That means they taken only on 12th. They did not take on 13th. But finally the fever ended on 14th. Can happen. But it cannot be that the fever ended on 14th and then you took the medication on 17th. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a check where I'm saying it is across the CRF. Okay, so you're not only checking one CRF page, you're checking one with the other CRF pages. Okay, then checks for the external data. So today we will go in to see what are the external datas. Again, there are some examples given, but if you do you remember we spoke about external data when we were doing C-CRF designing?
Yeah.
Yeah, what could be external data?
Like external data when we get from the site, like they enter like whatever that what should I say, like when they get like all the data from the participants data, like lab data.
So we call it central lab. So it's a central lab. Laboratory could be from central lab. ECG could be from the central reading, right? I will also I will give you some more example, but these two examples when we were doing CRF designing, we had come. Like we said, okay, ECG, was it from central? Was it from local? Or yeah, and then based on that, you will decide which data you will be collecting. Remember vaguely we said whether central data you will collect and the clinical significance comes from for who gives the clinical significance.
Yeah. So lab data, clinical data is like that.
Yeah, so whether the clinical significance, whether
yeah, clinical significance, abnormal ones.
Yeah, so yeah, so those are the external data. We will learn more about external data today. And then protocol violation. For example, if there is a protocol violation, then like for example, that's what I checked. So they say at screening, pregnancy should not be positive, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe by mistake they have enrolled a subject whose pregnancy is positive. That's a violation of protocol.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes it could be for age checks. Like the protocol says age of the subject should be 18 to 60 years. Okay. And they have taken someone in 17 years. Okay. So that's a protocol violation. So as a data manager, you will also have edit checks to check if there is no protocol violation. Just give me 1 minute. 1 minute. Yeah.
Sure.
Done? So you did this praying as well? Yeah, sure. Sindhu, can you give me 2 minutes? Maybe you can read this.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I will come.
Yeah, sure. Edit check for missing values are not usually applied to all the data fields, but should be used for critical variables such as
Hi, Sindhu. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. That's fine.
Okay, because they just told me they will come in the afternoon, but they were here in the morning. Okay,
Mm.
so did you had a look at did you read through this?
Yeah.
Okay, did you get a little bit idea now more about edit check so that because I wanted to show you this before you show me what you have done.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like, I feel like more common sense using when you are doing it.
Right. You have to be logical. So you don't have to, that's why I said you don't have to know programming for it because your programmer will program it, but you have to use your common sense. You have to use your logics to
Yeah.
define the check.
Mhm.
Yeah, because programmer will not be the one who will define the check because you have to read your protocol. Okay.
Mhm.
That's why we had spent the first few weeks, like we were reading protocol, we were understanding CRF designing.
Mhm.
Okay. Because for making the logical checks, it's very important for you to know how to design the CRF and then
Yeah.
know the CRF in and out.
Mhm.
Okay. As a data manager, even if you're handling multiple studies, you should know your CRFs completely in and out. Yeah.
Mhm.
Even if you have not designed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just this is in a snapshot. So like we said, missing values are usually front end, right? So as soon as they enter data, they will get that missing value pop up. Okay.
Mhm.
Missing CRF, so it's both front end and back end. That means why both? Because when the site coordinator enters into the database, they can see that they have not entered the page, right?
Mhm.
So for them, that's a missing CRF. Usually, most of the databases now they give a grid to show that there is a missing CRF.
Mhm.
Okay. And it could be backend as well, because as a data manager as well, you extract sometimes missing CRF reports and you will tell the sites that there is missing CRFs.
Mhm.
Okay. Range checks are always front end. It's not back end. That means front end means whenever if you have defined a range, like for example, if you have defined that temperature should be between 35 to 40, if it is 34, it will immediately fire a check. It will tell the coordinator that can you check the data. Okay. As a data manager, once you have designed this check, edit checks, you don't, and programmer has programmed it, you have tested that this works, you don't have to bother more.
Mhm.
Okay. Then duplicate checks sometimes you need to check because what happens, like for example, fever, it could be both front end and back end. Like subject ID could be front end. So whenever they enter, they have entered 001 again. So they by mistake, it will immediately tell them. But sometimes what happens, for example, they have fever. Okay.
Mhm.
So it cannot be checked front end because it could be that fever, but then fever started from 12th to 13th, and then another fever started from 15th to 16th.
Mhm.
So that one you have to, as a data manager, sometimes you have to come and see the data, and then only you can raise a query.
Mhm.
That's why we said front end as well, back end. Then logical inconsistencies across CRF, single CRF, definitely like what we had mentioned, like if A is present, start date should be there, end date should not be prior to start date. So these checks, it's logical checks. As a data manager, you don't have to do anything because once they have programmed, it should fire. Okay, so it's always front end. You don't have to do another. You don't have to review the data to generate a query. Okay. Then inconsistency across CRF or modules. This is completely backend because, as I mentioned, like if they say AE is reported and there is a concomitant medication, they will just say yes, there's a concomitant medication, yes, right? But as a data manager, you have to go to the concomitant medication page and see whether for that AE, is there any medication that has been taken during that AE start and end. Okay. So this cannot be checked front end, cannot be checked by the system directly. Okay. Even if you programmed, so you will program a check, you will say that you will program a check for data manager to know that, okay, if there is if the question is there medication taken for the AEs, yes, prompt a check for me, because then every yes, you will go and check the CM page.
Yeah.
If you see that, okay, there is no medication from that check, you will generate a check, you will send it to the site. Okay, so that's why that is a complete inconsistency, usually across CRF pages or modules. Most of the times they're backend. Sometimes nowadays, so these kind of checks, what I mentioned, is always backend. But for example, if you're checking both fields dates, like in one CRF you're checking, like for example, you're checking that the end date of the adverse event should not be after the study completion date. Study completion date is after that you don't have contact with the subject anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. So it cannot be, because your end date or any date in the CRF should be before the study or on the study completion date, because after that you did not get any information from the subject, right?
Yeah.
So if both are dates, sometimes I would say maybe I can put a dot here in the front end. Sometimes this could be checked front end. Okay. External data, it's always backend, because external data you are never entering into the database. Yeah. So it's always what we're saying is external data. Protocol violations, again, protocol violations could be both front end and back end. The example I gave you for the positive, it could be front end. And then there could be more complex checks that you have to check, then those could be back end. Like they have, like, for example, if they have a cancer, then they should not be in the study. So you cannot check that through edit check directly. So you have to go into the adverse medical history page and see if there is any cancer or not.
Okay. So here one question: who is taking care of front end and back end? Like what is they are related and who is taking care?
Okay.
For data manager both?
Good question. So both of them, data manager has defined. Okay. So in your edit check, you have said these are all my checks. Okay. Some of the front end checks, you don't have to worry about it, because once they are programmed and you have tested that the programming is right, then the check automatically fires and the site will correct the data. That's why we call it front end. That means site can correct the data, the check automatically fires, doesn't need, like for example, if there's a range check, you have defined the range, program has been done, you have tested, you don't have to go and keep looking what is the range and fire the query, because the program will fire the query. That's why it's called front end check.
Automated, mostly generated.
Yeah, it's automatic. It's a complete automation. So you don't have to worry about it. They will correct the data if they think no. For example, if they think no, the subject was enrolled at 17, then they will reply to you, and then you know it's a protocol violation. Okay. Then you need a manual intervention for protocol violation. So front ends are usually more automatic checks, completely automized check. Okay. Backend are sometimes they are partially automated. Yeah. That means they might tell you that you have designed in the system that if an adverse event there is a medication taken is yes, let me know. You will say that send it to data manager that I have to check back the CM page. Okay, and that's why we said backend check. That means you have to do some things in the backend. So if you have to name it in a different way, you can just call it fully automatic, and then it's partially automatic or manual check. Yeah. So okay, so before I go to the flowchart, maybe you can share your screen and we can I'll try to give you access for sharing.
Yeah.
And then you can share, and let's see whether you have all these different types of checks.
Share. You're able to see?
Yes. Can you make it a little bigger?
Yeah. So many things are open in my computer. So
No,
I didn't finish everything. Yeah, I just was not like very sure how should I do. So
yeah, okay, quite good. So you had any adverse event. So that's not your field, right? Any adverse event is not your field. Your field is where you want the query to generate, because your query is start date, right? Your query is one date can be selected between on. Yeah, so you actually have combined two queries in one.
Oh, okay.
So your first query start date must be yeah, we don't say before, we usually say, yeah, on or before. We don't say same. So usually we call it start date must be on, but your concept is correct. So start date must be before or same to end date, right? And that query you want to generate from end date, not also from start date, sorry. It's from end date, because only when they enter end date, your query will fire.
Oh, okay.